Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be discussing what is the transcendental apperception in Kant, what does this mean for his philosophy, and kind of how does he develop it. So this is the beginning or unity of consciousness in the work of Immanuel Kant, and specifically this was outlined in his 1781 edition of Critique of Pure Reason, where he states that the I is a unity of consciousness, okay? And the I think is a transcendental apperception. As such, all thoughts, all aspects of the mind are connected to the I think. And I think itself is a determining existence, right? So Kant would say here that we don't just give the self as a given. It's not just there. You have to determine it. So the determination of the self, the positing of the I, brings the self into being. Now you have a self. But if you remember, if you know about Kant's theory of the categories and the notion that there is an appearance of what we experience, there's something underlying the appearance, then you will know, and that applies to external objects. Kant applies this to internal processes too. So Kant was saying that what is the constitution of the thing in me that thinks? What is the thing in me that thinks? He doesn't know. He just says that we have the appearance, the representation of what thinking is to us, and the recognition of our existence as a appearance of something which is underlying it. That's something Kant says is not known. It is the noumena. All we can do is make negative connotations about it for Kant. Now, Kant gets this very important idea, and this is a very important idea because it is a movement in philosophy of not positing a self as given. It's making the self determining to exist. And this is something not seen before. We can go back to Descartes with his I think, therefore I am. Cogito ergo sum. Kant's main issue was that Descartes posited the self as a given already, and thus made it an analytic statement. Or in other words, he basically restated the same thing in different words, but it still had the same meaning. And Kant doesn't like this. He thinks that this doesn't give us some sort of understanding of external objects around us and even posit our existence. And so Kant gives us that determining I think as the determining in the manifold of space and time, which itself is not what underlies the I. So when we say I, there is something underlying the I for Kant. He doesn't know what it is. Again, there's that quote I said, what is the constitution of the thing in me that thinks? And then Kant goes, I cannot say I know. So this is that appearance which we represent, and that's our experience, right? But that itself is not the thing that's underlying. We don't know what the thing is. That's Kant's whole point. But what we can say is that when you posit the I think, this brings a determinable self into existence. Now we have a self. So this is how Kant establishes transcendental selfhood or transcendental soul, whatever you want to call it. This is the Kantian soul in this instance, right? We have moved from the Descartes, I think, therefore I am, to the I think is just purely that itself, right? Kant even reestablishes Descartes and says that, okay, Descartes is literally speaking purely analytic. What he's saying is, I exist, therefore I am. And that's Kant's issue with Descartes, is that he's purely just drawing an analytic statement, right? But if we remove the analytic statement and we think of the pure I think, or even the pure I as the unity of consciousness, then we have determined and given a grounding to ourselves. And then again, we would connect this with this sense of the appearances which are overlay the thing in itself, or the noumena. And that's Kant's theory of the self, of the soul. And Kant says, well, is the soul persisting? He's not sure. I'm working on a paper on this currently, so I emailed the editor of the Cambridge edition, Alan Wood, and Dr. Wood basically said that there's a debate in scholarship, but basically he just he is unsure if Kant believes that there is a single thing underlying our representation of self, or rather if there are multiple things. But we know that there is something, because it's very established that Kant believes you have to have something underlying the appearance for it to be an appearance. An appearance just can't be an appearance in itself, for Kant at least. But this would be the Kantian move, right? You would say that that thing underlying, we don't know about it, but it is underlying. It has to be. So thus, we have now completed the Kantian transcendental application and establishment of the selfhood. So where does this leave us? Well, Kant goes, I can't say personality is contained within the soul/self. And this would be differing from like past thinkers, people like Plato, who believed in a tripartite soul, where the tripartite soul had within it, the personality of the subject. Even Aristotle can be argued to put the personality in the soul. But there's just no personality in the soul for Kant. He says that to have personality in the soul would just be a pure presupposition, devoid of any just ground. It'd just be just throwing it in there. And he goes, oh no, we know it's persisting. We know it's a substance. It's persisting, but we don't have personality. That is all established, not in the soul. The soul is immaterial. That's not established in the immaterial. So that would be a material, more or less, activity as the personality of the person. So we've come to the end here. And this is a very abstract concept. This is one of the most difficult concepts, I think, that Kant gives, and also one of the most important he gives, which is why I'm making a video on it. It's connecting a lot of his philosophy, a system of metaphysics, system of epistemology and stuff. So it's okay if it doesn't make sense. I would recommend turning the captions on, perhaps. But when I publish my essay on this, it'll probably be better. But basically, again, I'll go over summary. You have the determining, I think, which determines the existence of the self, or the representation of the self in the manifold of space and time. Through the I as a unity of consciousness. This, I think, then allows to ground all of the thinking, right? Further, this, I think, establishes the determinable self, and now we have a self which is underlying just the determining itself. So, before the determinable self, you have a act of determining, which is not grounded in an identity of determination or determinable. Then, through the groundless activity of the I think, of the determining self, you then establish that determinable self. Now again, and this is that movement of saying that we don't just take the self as a given. It is something which has to be acted. It is a pure act. And this is where Slavoj Žižek, the modern philosopher, comes in. And Žižek basically says that what Kant, and more so what later Johann Fichte does, Fichte takes Kant's I and revitalizes it and adds some stuff. It's not the point of the video, but what they do is they create a pure act, which Žižek says is the pure act of non-determination. He inverts it in the classic Hegelian fashion, but basically for Kant, we would say that this pure act is the determining act, and it's revolutionary in philosophy. And that's why I enjoy this concept so much, even if I don't fully agree with it. Just quite interesting, and it's really interesting how Kant gets in that position and how he responds to Descartes, and how it's established in later philosophy as well. So, yeah, that's going to have to do it for the video. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. Again, captioning helps. And hopefully my paper will elucidate more this concept that I'm trying to grab out of Kant. So, thank you, and subscribe down below and like the video.